Negative charge means excess of electrons. I think it's absolutely clear, right? One more thing, very, very important. This frictional electricity, this charging by friction, or rather frictional electricity, it is also known as static electricity. Frictional electricity is also known as static electricity because when the two bodies are rubbed against each other, transference of electrons definitely takes place from one body to another. But the charges which get transferred to a part of a body stay there only. They don't move from one part of the body to another body. So that is the reason why frictional electricity is also known as static electricity. It is because the charges are developed on the body by friction can't move from one part of the body to another. They remain static at their position. So that's the reason why frictional electricity is known as static electricity. Now, let's discuss this topic in detail. There are two categories of bodies. By convention, one category is known as positive charge bodies. The other one is known as negative charge bodies. Now let's understand few examples, right? Let's consider the case of glass rod and silk. Now initially, glass rod, silk both are electrically neutral, net charge is zero. But when they are rubbed against each other, then it is found that work function of glass rod is less than that of silk. What I mean to say is that electrons are easily able to get transferred from glass rod to silk. So as a result, glass rod will lose electrons while silk will gain electrons. So that is why this is placed under this category. It will acquire a net positive charge, it will acquire a net negative charge due to the gaining of electrons. Right? It is just as convention, we say positive and negative charge. Similar examples are woolen cloth and rubber, or woolen cloth and plastic. So, when the substances from these two categories are rubbed against each other, then this category of substance tends to lose electrons and hence acquire positive charge. These category of substance tends to gain electrons and thus acquires negative charge. One thing to be noted is that the number of electrons transferred from glass rod to silk, or from woolen cloth to rubber, or from woolen cloth to plastic, they must be in some integral form, isn't it? It can't be in fraction. So this is a very, very important point. The net charge on a body or acquired by a body, it can be given by some integral multiple of the smallest unit of charge. Let us say smallest unit of charge is electron E, whose magnitude is obviously 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. So suppose, as an example, suppose due to the rubbing of glass rod and silk, let us assume it loses 10 raised to 12 electrons. Glass rod loses 10 raised to 12 electrons. So silk will gain 10 raised to 12 electrons. So net charge acquired by this silk would be minus, obviously due to the gain in electrons it will acquire a negative charge. How many electrons are getting transferred? 10 raised to 12. And what is the charge on an electron? Magnitude wise 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. So this will be the net negative charge acquired by silk. So what I mean is, this should be some integer. It can't be in fraction. So this is known as quantization of charge. Again, this we will discuss later on. So I hope it's absolutely clear. So charging by friction means when the two bodies are rubbed against each other, then charges tend to get shifted from one body to another, or get transferred from one body to another. The electrons tend to get transferred from the body having lower work function to the body having higher or greater work function. The body that loses electrons tend to acquire a net positive charge, while the body that gains electrons will tend to acquire net negative charge. In this case, Suppose 10 to 12 electrons get transferred from glass rod to silk. The silk will acquire this much negative charge, while glass will acquire a net charge of 10 raised to power 12 into 1.6 into 10 to the minus 19 and positive. So both will acquire equal and opposite charge. One more thing you can observe, net charge before rubbing, net charge of glass rod is 0, net charge of silk is 0. So before rubbing, net charge of the system comprising glass rod and silk is 0, isn't it? After rubbing, charge on glass rod is this much, charge on silk is this much. So net charge of the system after rubbing, if you add these two, it will again amount to 0. So again, a very, very important conclusion. Charge is conserved. Charge can neither be created nor it can be destroyed. But it can be transferred from one body to another body. But charge is always conserved. Charge can neither be created nor it can be destroyed. So that's charging by friction. So, electrification of bodies, as I said earlier, it can be done by 3 ways. One is charging by friction, second one is charging by conduction, third one is charging by induction. Let's deal with the second one. Charging by conduction. Now, charging by conduction . Charging by conduction. Now here, what we need to do is, two bodies, one charged and the other uncharged. When they are brought in contact, not rubbed, they are simply brought in contact with each other. So at the point of contact, what happens is the charge gets shared between the two bodies. So the uncharged body also gets charged, similar to that of the charged body. So this is known as conduction. Conduction is the process of electrification of the body when a charged body is brought in contact with the uncharged body. It is just touched. So it is due to the sharing of charge. And the uncharged body, which was earlier uncharged, now will acquire, after conduction, similar charge as that of the charged body. So got the difference between friction, charging by friction and charging by conduction. Charging by friction means the bodies needs to be rubbed against each other. Both are neutral bodies. Both need to be rubbed against each other. After rubbing, one body will get positive charge, the other one will acquire negative charge. Conduction means one is charged body, the other one is uncharged body. So when the charged body is brought in contact with the uncharged body, not rubbed, just simply brought in contact with the uncharged body, then the charge tend to get shared at the point of contact. As a result of which, this uncharged body will acquire similar charge to that of the charged body. So that's charging by conduction.